She had always been my world. I trusted her with everything, or at least I thought I did. We had our fair share of problems, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. Or so I believed. Then came that night. The night everything changed. It wasn't just any night. It started off like any other. She told me she was going to a party with some friends, something casual. I didn't think much of it at the time. But, like a shadow in the back of my mind, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling. It was like the air around me had suddenly thickened, and a deep, nagging intuition whispered that there was more to it than she was letting on. I knew I had to see for myself. I decided to surprise her, to show up unannounced. I imagined walking in, seeing her smile, maybe even catching her by surprise. But when I arrived, everything was different. The house was full of people, their laughter and chatter competing with the blaring music. It felt alive, yet the energy in the room was suffocating. As soon as I stepped inside, an overwhelming sense of unease washed over me. People glanced at me in a way that I couldn't quite place. Was it pity? Guilt? Maybe it was all in my head, but the feeling wouldn't go away. I tried calling her. No answer. My heart sank deeper, but I forced myself to keep walking, to brush off that unsettling sensation. And then I saw her. But not in the way I imagined. She wasn't alone. She was with him. The man I considered a close friend, the man who had shared countless meals at my table, laughed with my children, and spent holidays with us. He was holding her, his hand resting on her waist, laughing as she leaned in, whispering something in his ear. It felt like the air in my lungs had been replaced with stones. I stood frozen, my heart racing, my mind unable to grasp what my eyes were seeing. The world seemed to stop. I wanted to confront them, to scream, to ask how long this had been going on, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, all I could do was turn around and walk away. My legs felt like they were made of lead, my vision blurry, my body numb. The ground seemed to shift beneath me, as if the very foundation of everything I knew had crumbled. I stepped outside into the cold air, desperate for clarity, desperate for an explanation. How could she betray me like this? How long had she been hiding this secret? How could he, someone I trusted, betray me like this too? I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. I drove aimlessly, my thoughts racing, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. I thought about calling her, demanding an explanation, but each time my hand reached for my phone, I stopped. What could she possibly say that would make this okay? How could I listen to her excuses, knowing everything she had done? My trust, my love, everything had been shattered in one glance. It wasn't until late that night that she finally texted me. Her message was apologetic, filled with empty words. "I'm sorry, it was just a mistake." But I knew better. I wasn't foolish. This wasn't a simple slip-up. It wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been brewing for months, maybe even longer. She had been lying to me, deceiving me, and now the truth had come crashing down. The next day, I asked her to meet me. I needed answers, needed to hear it from her. When we sat down, she looked guilty, but there was no remorse in her eyes. Her words were hollow, excuses wrapped in apologies. She admitted everything, how long it had been going on, how she had kept me in the dark, how she had made me believe I was her one and only. But that wasn't the worst part. I looked at her, my chest tight with anger and betrayal. And then it hit me. The realization that this wasn't just about me anymore. My children, my innocent children, had been living in the same web of lies. They had been part of this betrayal too. The man who had spent so much time with them, who had played with them, who had smiled at me as if nothing was wrong, he had taken everything from me. He wasn't just a friend. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a liar, a traitor. And I couldn't let it go. I stood up. The words that came next were the hardest I'd ever said. "You've lost everything," I told her. "This is over." I walked out. There was no point in staying, not after everything she had done, not after everything she had done, not after what he had done. I didn't want to be in that house, in that life, where everything I thought I knew had been a lie. The weight of what had happened crushed me. I thought of my children. How would I ever explain this to them? How could I ever look at them the same way? The man they had trusted, the man I had trusted, had torn our world apart. I didn't go back home that night. My thoughts were chaotic, but through the pain, something was beginning to solidify inside me. I wasn't going to let this break me. I had my children to think of, and I was going to rebuild. For them. For me. As I drove, I made a promise to myself. No matter how deep the pain, I would rise from this. I would be stronger. The betrayal wasn't just hers, it was his too. And one day, they would have to face the consequences of what they had done. The last thing I ever said to her was, I hope you're happy with what you've done, because you've lost everything. That was the end of us. And as I drove away, I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, but it was no longer all-consuming. I walked away from her, from him. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was starting to regain control of my own life. The journey ahead was long, but it was mine to take.